Okay, thanks a lot. Some of you have seen this material again. Some of you have memorized the circular. The few changes from last year just due to the volatility of sunflower prices and the nitrogen costs. So I'll go through those. So we did a huge bunch of work from 2012 to 2016, focusing on 2014, 2015 from farmer sites all the way across North Dakota. So most of our data come from that work that was done with nitrogen and phosphorus. So without getting into nauseating detail, this is what we did just to let you know that we replicated everything, and we used a range of nitrogen rates that were reasonable. We used the kind of nitrogen fertilizer that we could apply to the surface, not have to worry about volatility. Kind of mimicked maybe putting ammonia into the ground. And then we also, underneath the main plots of the different nitrogen rates in 2014, not knowing exactly what phosphate was going to do because the literature is very scarce, we put 4 phosphorus rates from 0 to 90 pounds of P2O5, and we found that there wasn't any difference in the yields at all. And so we made it easy on ourselves and just used 2 phosphorus rates in 2015, 0 and 60 pounds of P2O5 per acre triple super. And to anticipate a question, yes, we put it on the surface, but that never bothers me at all. And it shouldn't bother you also, but that's how we applied it. So when we looked at the yield increases with nitrogen fertilizer, we used total known available N, and so the rate of nitrogen that we used was added to the any kind of a nitrate test that we did at the beginning of the year, and then I don't think anybody was put any legume or anything there before, so there wasn't any previous crop credit. It's not one of those things that you normally use. The white mold would eat you alive. So that's a typical response from no-till. It's a shallow response because of the no-till credit, and so we got a response at all of our sites in nitrogen. This is conventional till. Notice that the response curve is steeper than it was with the no-till because there is no no-till credit, of course, in conventional till soils. But I saw this all the time, not only sunflowers, but any crop that we've ever worked with. Here's the Western responses, relative yield versus total available N. And so that gives you kind of an idea about what we were seeing as far as nitrogen rate goes, that yeah, there was a pretty good response, and a person should pay attention to their nitrogen rate. But we also saw that as we increased nitrogen rate, the degree of lodging that we got whenever there was a strong wind, when there was a sunflower head developed, this example being from botano or botano sites, can be pretty devastating. So with I had a comment from one grower by Hazelton. He said it's just so frustrating to me. We have a neighbor who doesn't ever put anything on, and his yields are always low, but they're always standing. And mine, I'm putting on what I think is the right rate, and mine fall down. He says it's just very frustrating. So that's true, that if you have bigger heads, the torque on that is really something. You get a 60-mile-an-hour wind come down, they're flat in the ground. So that's a problem. And so over application of nitrogen just for lodging is something that you have to keep in mind. And then also Greg talked about the South Dakota state data, and I put something in the chat, but we saw this all the time with all of our sunflower oilseed sunflower sites. That is, we increase the nitrogen rate, we decrease the oil. And when I put together the nitrogen calculator, I took into account the decrease in oil with nitrogen rate as well as the cost of nitrogen to figure out what the economic optimal rate of nitrogen would be, different regions of the state. So this is taken into account with the nitrogen calculator that we have right now. One of the things that really isn't factored into our recommendations, but I I guess I saw the effect of nitrogen rate on disease, but I never really got that, oh my gosh, I could have had a V8 moment until the very last site at Dickinson. And I was working with Roger Ashley, the retired plant pathologist. He was really, really nice, found me sites, West River, and he worked with me to put the treatments on and to harvest them. Gave him something to do in retirement, and I really, really appreciated. But I asked him at the end, I said, what are these little spots all over the leaves? And so he says, that's sunflower rust. And he says, well, I think there's more on the higher end rates. And how can we go about doing that? So he went out afterwards and took pictures of leaves, and we sent the pictures of the leaves to Sam Markel, and he made a rating of them. But one of the things we didn't do, and I really should have done it, but I saw it, and I mentioned it to plant pathologists, and maybe this will put them on the spot because there's about 180 growers on the thing, and maybe somebody else will kind of urge them through this. But I definitely saw more white mold on the higher end rates than what I did in the lower end rates, and a person could imagine why that is. Because if you have the higher end rates, you have bigger leaves, you have denser stands, you just have a lower movement of air through the system. And so I mentioned it to at least one plant pathologist, and I don't know if anybody's done it before, but I think that's one of the things that people need to keep in mind is if you really push that N rate, the amount of disease you're going to get is going to increase, and it could be some years really, really important. So I'm just throwing it out, and we'll see where it lands. So to make our nitrogen calculator, we use the return to N model, the economic optimal N rate. It was developed in Iowa and Illinois back around 2004, 2005. For corn, almost all of the Midwest states use this. South Dakota is developing one right now. They've been a little bit behind because when Jim Gerwing left and Ron Gelderman left, and they had nobody for several years. But now Jason Clark is in there, and he's doing good work. But it takes a while to mass some data. So they use a return to N model, and that's what I do too. So this is what the return to N model looks like behind the scenes. So each of those arrays is a different sunflower price from 15 cents in this example on the bottom to 24 cents on the top. And then the end cost is each of those rays that are coming out from that y-axis. And so the lower curve is a 60 cent a pound nitrogen cost, which is kind of lower than what it is right. I mean, yeah, it is lower than what it is right now. Now it's about maybe 75, 80 cents, something like that, depending on what you buy. And then the top curve in each of those arrays is 20 cents. So since nitrogen cost in the past 30 years has gone from like 20 cents to $1.40 a pound or so, and sunflower price last year was well over 30 cents, which is above our calculator. I've included prices and costs well below that. So I don't want you to go blind, but this is an example from the circular with the Western sunflower suggested N rates, long-term no-till oil seed. And the sunflower prices go from 9 cents a pound to 60 cents a pound. And then the end costs go from 20 cents to $2. So for a given sunflower price, as the cost of N increases, the rate that you apply to a point decreases, because we're trying to make money here. The reason you're putting on fertilizer is to make money, not to make sure that your supplier gets his annual trip to Hawaii. So we want to make sure that you make the most money with your N rate. And so this does that. So to find this, these updated recommendations, you go to my website, Dave Franzen, NDSU, select the home site. On the right-hand page, you find the calculator. The modern calculator, the one we have right now published, has all three calculators, soon to be 4, but 3 right now: sunflower, spring wheat, durum, and then corn. You just click on that tab here. We clicked on the sunflower. It gives you the regions of the state. You pick up your regions of the state, tillage type, just go down the list, calculate it, and there you are. And then it's plus or minus, because we give you credit for common sense. So it's not a number that's chiseled on a temple wall someplace. It gives you a number, and then a little bit less than that or a little bit greater than that, depending on what your history has been and what your experiences have been with that field or fields. So that's how it works. So here's an example. We're working with confections, which can tolerate a little bit higher nitrogen rate than what oilseed is, because you're not worried about oil in this case. You're just worried about the yield. And then the residual nitrogen is 50 pounds an acre in the top 2 feet. Nitrogen cost is $1 a pound. Sunflower contracts 30 cents a pound. So what the calculator is going to give you is an N rate of 38 pounds of N plus or minus 20 pounds an acre. So depending on what your past experiences are, you're fully able to, and you have my professional permission if you ever needed it, to go up to maybe 58, 60 pounds of N, or maybe down to 20 pounds of N. It's kind of completely up to you with that kind of that kind of data input. So I want to move on to the phosphate, because there's still some astonishment that sunflowers don't respond to phosphate, but I want to share this. These are a number of sites that we took in 2014, 15, and you can see that the phosphate test is mostly in the medium to very low range. We had one site that had 2 part per million phosphate, and you'll see that there was no response, no yield increase with phosphate. And so at the end of all this work, and then reviewing literature from lots of other places, sunflowers just don't need additional phosphate. I think their relationship with mycorrhiza is just so strong that it's kind of like flax, that it really doesn't care if you put phosphate there or not, that between the roots and the mycorrhiza, it's fully capable to get whatever it needs from the soil. No need for starter fertilizer. It doesn't respond to starter. In fact, you'd probably lower your seed count if you did that. So save some money and use it on your wheat, use it on your corn. But it's kind of money wasted if you use it on the sunflowers. Potassium, if the soil test is less than 150 ppm, then apply 100 pounds of 0060 an acre. Some of you are in that category, but not many. So that's something to keep in mind. Should you be applying sulfur? Let me see. I think it's a really good idea to apply sulfur to corn and to small grains, especially after a winter like this, and always with canola, or other broadleaf crops. I just see I'll just come out and say I have not seen a sulfur deficiency in any of our broadleaf crops except for canola in the state. And I don't know why I don't see it, but I'm not the only one that does. John Sawyer, when he worked at Iowa State and they started seeing widespread sulfur deficiencies in corn in 2005, he started putting out paired trials, one with corn and then one with soybeans, and he had this massive yield increase with corn and didn't see anything with sunflowers with the same conditions, same soils. Our soil test for sulfur is junk, so don't even do it. Don't even pay attention to it. It's not diagnostic. But I wouldn't worry about sulfur with sunflowers. If you do see some early in the season, which would be yellowing, just kind of a complete leaf yellowing, not interveinal, just complete yellowing, and you do a paired test on that yellow area compared to a green area across the field, and you find that indeed the small area has a sulfur deficiency, you can rescue it, because sunflower doesn't really decide what it's going to do until it grows up, until the heads come out. So there's plenty of time to treat it later on, but pre-plant, I wouldn't mess with it. In micronutrients, people bring up boron. We've done tests with boron. They ask about zinc and different things. I've never seen a micronutrient problem on sunflowers in the state, and so don't worry about it. There's lots of other things to worry about in the world, and this would be one of the last things I'd worry about. So there's going to be lots of time for questions, because doing the research on this wasn't particularly easy, but the recommendations are. So the only nutrient to worry about that I would care about if I was putting in sunflowers would be the nitrogen, and use the nitrogen calculator, and that'll guide you to where you want to be. So see my website, just search for Dave Franzen, NDSU, look at extension publications of my sunflower circular is there if you want way more information. And then for the calculator, just look on the right-hand side of my homepage. And then you can download the app for iPhones or Androids. Both of those are up. And the North Dakota nitrogen calculator is on the computer website. Finally, I just want to acknowledge all the people that help with this. Eric Schultz, who's now with BISF, was my master's student that worked during that period of time. Lakesh Sharma worked on the project for a while as a postdoc, and he's now the extension soil scientist at University of Florida in Gainesville. And then John Brecker helped with the study also, and he's now head agronomist at AgVice Labs. Special thanks to Roger Ashley, the retired plant pathologist that worked out of Dickinson, and then Sam Markell for going through all those pictures. And then Honggang Bu, who's my technician and a world-class programmer that's done all the calculators and apps that we use.